I am Slick Nick, your personal certified Enneagram coach. Let's come to terms with the fact we all have mental issues. This doesn't imply that we're mentally ill, but we all have issues to work through. Now, as a certified Enneagram coach, I'm going through this myself, and I'm accepting that I have issues with anger, shame, and fear. And we all do, and that's what Enneagram is all about. I'd love for you to check out this book. I have it linked to Amazon right there. You can learn all about yourself and others. But ultimately, each Enneagram has a certain emotion that they specifically struggle with. So, for example, me as an Enneagram 7, mainly it's fear or anxiety. And then also my wing is an 8, so then I've got the anger thing going on. But even also shame that I deal with. We all have those issues that we're probably sorting out. And as I continue to learn more about myself, I realize I actually have those issues. It's funny to think that 100 days ago, not 90 days ago, I didn't even understand that I have anxiety. I have the kind of anxiety that's not, oh no, what's going to happen? But it's an anxiety where if I feel my time is being wasted, which is my main fear as a 7, then I feel this anger rise up in me. I did not understand what that angry anxiety was until now, and that I've always been dealing with that. But I think it's important as you learn these things about yourself, again, that we all have some kind of maybe repressed issues with, again, anger, shame, and anxiety. I think it's important to understand where that came from, because there's a story attached to it. Now, there's a book called Wild at Heart, which talks about, as a child, all of us encountered some type of wound that ultimately we spend a lot of our childhood and even adulthood healing from. But then I've also heard a theory that we all have some sort of error that happened as an adult. For me, it was 29. And I'm going to talk about that right now because it helps me understand where my issues are rooted. So I'm 40 years old. When I was 29, my wife and I had been married just a little over a year. We found out we're going to have a baby. So we ended up moving to the next state, back to my hometown, about 3 hours away. We left our jobs. When we moved, we had no jobs lined up. And this is right after the financial crisis of '08. So there especially weren't just remote jobs in a hometown. That's just a small place. So 9 months go by, no jobs. We realize we have to move back. So imagine what it's like, newly married and a newborn at this point, no jobs. Then you're like, okay, guess we got to ask for our old jobs back. We move back across the state line again, ask for our jobs back. Car breaks down on the way up there. And as we reestablished our lives, we had also went through all of our savings for that move. That's how we survived 9 months. So now we have no savings. We're starting over. I was actually a manager at my job. Well, now I'm working for the very people I hired. It was rough, and it was years of my life that we had to get out of debt and eventually get into a different apartment and eventually get into a different company altogether. It was a slow process. In the process of that, we're learning how to become parents. There's a lack of sleep involved in raising 2 young children. So in that, here I am over a decade later, just now processing, wow, I was angry, but I didn't know how to express it. As an Enneagram 7, we don't have time to deal with negative emotions. That's how we're wired. So I just repressed that anger. And now I'm understanding. Ultimately, it's only emphasized the 8 wing that I have, that anger wing that I have. It's now emphasized more than ever. So I'm understanding that more, that I have anger because of that. Because I just wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to move my family, my wife and my child, to be close to an extended family. What was wrong with that? Living a simpler lifestyle. That's all I really wanted. And I couldn't have that. And that causes anger. And absolutely there was shame involved. It was a mistake. We shouldn't have moved without jobs. And then having to ask for our jobs back, it was really rough. There's a lot of shame involved in that. And during that time, and now I can understand it in hindsight, but because I had shame, and I also felt this loss of control, which is again that 8 in me, that I ultimately I ended up becoming a vegan. It gave me control over something because I felt so helpless. And in that, I turned into my stress as a 7. I turned into a number 1, the worst part of me. And I became this very dictating person that if you're not a vegan, then you're crazy and you're stupid and everybody should be a vegan like me. It was very judgmental. It was very much a negative alter ego. Embarrassed myself on social media, saying all these things about how this is the way you should be. But now I understand that was anger leaking out. That was shame leaking out. It was fear leaking out of me. All of these emotions were leaking out of me, and this avatar was created, and I was not in a good place. Years later, everything's great in my life now. I love my job. I'm in a different place. Things have never been better. My children are not very young anymore. They're 5 and 11, so we're getting more sleep. We can talk to our kids. My wife and I have been married 13 years now. We understand how we moved into a new house. We moved into the suburbs. Life is so much easier now. Our income has doubled since all of that happened a decade ago as well. Life is a lot easier. And now that the smoke is cleared, I can understand this. But imagine for over a decade, not realizing that you had anger issues and shame issues and fear issues that you're just now beginning to deal with. At age 40, that's what my life is like right now. To say out loud, to mentally accept and then to say out loud, I have anger issues, I have shame issues, I have fear issues, but I'm doing something about it. By recognizing that and talking about it and being grateful for what I do have, this is basically my therapy. And I'm not unique in this. Enneagram 4. I'm not Enneagram 4. I'm not unique in this. We all have issues with shame, fear, and anger. We all do. Some people express that more. Others don't. For 7s, not good at that. 9s, like my wife, for example, the peacemaker, also not good at expressing those negative emotions and how they really feel. A lot of Enneagrams are not. Others are openly aware of that. But a lot of us are not. And so we're sorting that out. And it's funny because if you told me a year ago that I have anger issues and anxiety issues and fear, anger, shame, I would say, no, I don't. But now that I understand the story behind it, now I can recover from that error. Enough time has passed and maturity has passed. I mean, I spent the whole decade of my 30s. It was a whole just decade of me learning from that. I mean, I will forever be a better person because I lived through it. And I would never want to have to go through that again. And I'm grateful that I'm halfway through my life, but I've got the second half of my life with this knowledge to know how to not make those mistakes and to be in better touch with my emotions. And granted, I will tell you, for the most part, one of the things I've learned is to not let my emotions get the most of me, the ones that I do have. But there are the ones that I have access to, that I understand. But understanding, I have every reason to have felt the way I did. Those emotions were real. Those emotions guided me for better or worse during my 30s. So now here I am in my 40s, and I'm just so grateful to have this information. And had I not began exploring Enneagram and understanding that, I would not know that about myself. It's universal. We all have these issues with shame, anxiety, and fear. But shame, fear, and anxiety, I should say. And we all have those. It's a matter of recognizing that story that caused that to happen. Even the movie Encanto, which I just watched, that whole story, the whole family was based on something that happened before that those children were ever even born. And as parents, you carry that on to your children, and then it keeps going on. If this is the year of dealing with mental health issues, this is where it starts, is what I would say. Your comments belong right here.